What do you do when your husband is too busy to sit down and have a meaningful conversation with you because he is always working, finding time to help other people, busy with sports and so on? What do you do? And when you do get a chance to talk to him about a serious issue that might require him to make some changes, does he get upset? Does he deflect? Does he gaslight? Does he raise his voice at you? Does he accuse you of being a nag or attacking? What do you do when you try to speak to him and he's so busy? Now, it's like you can't win for losing. You know what I'm talking about? That feeling. Let's face it, we know that communication can be tricky, especially when your husband's, he's so laser focused on building his dreams. Communicating effectively is really becomes a challenge, right? And so it's got to be deciding when, how, where, and what to say. Because sometimes you're accused of not what you're saying, but you're told is not what you're saying, is what how you say that. So again, you feel so trapped and frustrated because you want to connect with your husband. You want to engage with him. You want him to recognize your needs and acknowledge you and not feel like you're unseen and this, like you're an unseen person. Feeling invisible, right? And it is really incredible because here's what happened. It's more so because your husband, his makeup, right? This ambitious husband of yours, he's probably more like me. And what do I mean by that? I tend to identify with some of the things that you might be describing your husband to be busy and seem to be always on, and even when he's not working, it seems like he's working, right? And so it's probably more like me. So I have a good understanding of how you can get to feel more connected and less anxious about your relationship. Because again, your husband is very passionate and is driven and maybe even a little like a workaholic, even though he would never describe himself as that, right? He would dismiss the idea and think like, you're crazy. Workaholic? I'm not. If you want to know a workaholic, he may say, I can show you a workaholic. That's not who I am, right? And he may fight that, but you may say, well, okay, maybe you may think that way, but it's like you're always working. But it's that ambition that that is driving him, that aspirations and his zeal. But that for you, it leaves you feeling unheard, misunderstood, and you feel like you're lost in the shuffle. You're left behind. You are the mistress to his work. I mean, sorry, his work is a yeah, that's right. It may feel that way, right? And or his work is a mistress and you are the wife. And so it has all these things that gets conjured up. So today we're diving into three kingdom minded tips that I want to share with you to how to master communication, how to talk to your husband, how to get him to listen to what it is you're saying in a way that works for both of you. And what that ends up doing is building a stronger, more connected relationship with your ambitious husband. And that's what I want to be able to do in this video. Now, if this is your first time here, let me just say that I'm Kingsley Grant, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified relationship coach. And I've been married for 38 years as of this recording and have two adult children, wonderful adults in our lives. And I've worked with hundreds of couples over the last almost 2 decades, and I've seen and heard, well, you name it. When it comes to relationship issues, I have, the gamut I've heard and experienced with many people who I have worked with. So I have a great deal of understanding and experience both personally and professionally, and want to use that as those experiences as the lens through which I'm looking at this topic. So let's go. Let's dive in. The first tip is speak his language, but don't forget yours. Speak his language, but don't forget yours. That is what tends to happen sometimes. As that wife who wants to be supportive of your husband, who wants him to know that you love and care for him and want him to succeed, sometimes what I find in the work that I do, I hear a wife who would say she've lost her identity. And then when I listen, I'm saying, yes, you have lost yourself. Who are you now? So understanding his world, right? Then, and this is what you know, men and women, of course, often communicate differently because as your husband, and I know this from a firsthand experience as a man, a husband myself, he thrives on facts and numbers and solutions, right? Especially the latter. He wants to fix things. While you might value emotions and personal connection, that's what you value more. And he and you are basically is at a different side of this chasm, and you seem to can't be able to get across and connect where it feels as if you're in this marriage or in this relationship. So the key is to appreciate the differences, right? Not criticize them. Try to understand his preferred communication style. Does he respond better to direct conversations or written notes or text messages or a message left on his phone or an email? The king said, why should I be talking to my husband through an email or text when I live with him? I sleep in the same bed with him. Why should I be doing that? Listen, this is where I think the problem comes in. When we feel like we should be doing certain things and he should know this and he should respond this way simply because we're married. Listen, don't take those for granted. Your relationship is important. It matters. And whatever way it works for you, why even resist that? And who says it should be a certain way? Who said that? What if your husband is a processor who needs to look at something on paper or on text or an email, right? Because he might need to process those things because he is not in the moment person. You know your husband and should know him, and he knows you and how best to communicate. Remember 1 Corinthians 9:22, it reminds us to say, become all things. Paul was writing and he said, become all things. He's talking about what he wants to do. Become all things to all people, that by all means I might save some or win some of the translations talk about. Paul is simply saying, I'm going to adjust and adapt and be flexible in whatever I need to do without compromising certain convictions. Of course, he's not saying I'm going to participate in the things that are wrong. He just simply saying, I'm going to adapt and adjust as much as is possible without crossing the line. And so he can connect and communicate and interact in a healthy and manner with those people he coming in contact with. So the Bible does give that in principle here, and this is a kingdom principle, and that is adapting your communication style can be the way to unlocking deeper connection. For me, I think for me, I would rather sometimes my wife, talking to me face to face and having a conversation and asking me questions is one of those ways that she can get my best response, because I will listen to the question that being asked out of curiosity, and she's pulling things out of me. That's the way that I prefer communication. For her, it is the timing is what I say, but also how I say what it is I say. That's also is a way for her to hear that I'm curious and I want to know more. And so we have to learn our different styles. And so when you're in that moment, is asking insightful questions, ask him about his work, ask him about his dreams, his aspirations, the things he's working on. Celebrate his wins. Show genuine interest in his goals. When last have you asked him about what makes him anxious about his work? When last have you asked him about how does he feel about where he's at in his journey, in his along his goal? What challenges? What's the most challenging thing for him? When last have you asked him about how he truly feels about things? And maybe this is one of those things that is missing. And you say, Kingsley, what about me? What about him asking me? Listen, this is where I think sometimes we can go awry and miss the point because we're always worried about the other person. You know, I love what Jesus said to Peter one time. Peter was worried and he was in the same kind of situation. He said to Jesus, hey, Jesus, what about John? You know, it's like as if, okay, I know about what you're talking to me about. What about John? And Jesus said, Peter, leave that to me. I'll take care of that situation. You focus on you. And this is what I find sometimes if we take responsibility for ourselves and not worry about what any other person does, our husband or our wife does, right? In this case, of course, I'm speaking as a husband to a wife, as a wife does, or as a husband does, if you're speaking to your husband, and we take focus on what we need to do, our responsibilities, that can make a whole world of difference. So remember, don't lose your voice. Communicate your needs clearly and honestly. But one thing I want to suggest is how you use that, or how do you do that, is using what you may have heard before is I statements, right? Focusing on solutions, not accusations. So when you're talking about what it is you're experiencing, is what it is that you feel that he would never know unless you told him. I love what Ephesians 4:29 says, let no corrupting talk come out of your mouth, but only such as is good for building up as fits the occasion, that it might give grace to those who hear it, right? So your responsibility is to manage how you talk, manage your emotion during the conversations, and do your best to regulate so that you don't get hijacked or the relationship gets sidetracked, right? Those are things we got to guard against. Second tip, timing is everything. Timing is everything. You may have heard that before, right? And sometimes it's not what we're talking about or how we're talking about things, is just when we choose to talk about things, right? Picture this. Your husband walked in the door exhausted from a long day, or walked out of the office because it may work from home and have had a rough day. You didn't know that because you didn't hear him acting a certain way if you're home with him, or you didn't hear from him in the day because he didn't complain. He doesn't complain. And you got home and you launch into a complex emotional conversation. That's not exactly a recipe for success, right? You know that. So when he hears and sees that, he goes, whoa, 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 wait a minute. I just came out of my office. I just got home. Can you give me a chance to decompress? So it's timing is everything. So instead, I want to encourage you to choose the right time and place for important discussions. Maybe during a shared activity, if you go for a walk together, or a quiet dinner, but choose a time when he's relaxed and receptive, right? Maybe in bed, just laying down and just talking. So open a conversation with a clear intent. So he needs to know what is your intention. So he might say, honey, I like to talk about your day, but first, is this a good time for you? Is this a good time for you? Let me just suggest to avoid this statement that every husband I've ever spoken to would agree with me on this. I need to talk to you about something, or when can I talk to you about something? That is really one of the ways to put your husband in anxiety overload mode, right? Is because he's now wondering, what did he do wrong? What's wrong now? And you've just raised up his anxiety bar. So I tell couples many times, especially a wife, I said, if you want to speak to your husband about something, just say to him, honey, I want to talk to you about this thing, and I'm wondering if this is a good time right now. So don't leave him hanging as to what that thing might be. Just tell him in a way that he can hear it, right? Remember, Proverbs 15:23 says, a word spoken at the right moment is like gold apples in silver settings. Picture that, a gold apple in a silver setting. That gold apple stands out, right? It sticks out. It just really becomes so more pronounced. It is really a setting that catches your eye. So when you speak a word at the right moment, it's like that gold apple in the silver setting. And so you want to choose to make sure that you speak like that apple will look in that silver setting. How it is that you've prepared the environment, the setting, right, with like a silver setting, and then the gold apple is your conversation. Is what you're going to do when you're talking to him. That is so incredibly important. So again, is timing is everything. And the third tip, and by the way, before I give the third tip to you, if you have not yet subscribed to the channel, can I ask you to do that right now? And would you just hit that like button? If you're like anything I've said so far, let me know by hitting the like button, right? And of course, a comment is always, always appreciated, because it's one of those ways to hear back from you. Maybe what it is, I may say something that I may expand on in another video. And this is the way for us to have a continued conversation. The third tip point is to create a safe space for open and honest dialogue. This could have been the first one, or should have been, because I find that when you have this conversation, having a safe space, having that place where you can have what I call rules of engagement, meaning what are the behaviors that happen in this safe space? What are things that are not allowed in this safe space? When I work with couples, whether through coaching or counseling, I encourage them, and I work with them sometimes to design a safe space. And that again could be a silver plate, right? So when the apple comes in, the safe space could be the silver setting, right? So what I find that communication thrives in a safe and respectful environment, where that is part of the script that went into creating that environment. So create a safe space where both of you feel comfortable expressing your thoughts and feelings openly and honestly. That is so key. So you want to give him your full attention. Now, again, I know this might be saying, well, what about him? Shouldn't he also give me his full attention and not be on his phone and scrolling and watching television while he's talking to me? Yes, 100%. Yes, 100 times. Yes, he should. But guess what? I'm not speaking to him right now. I would tell him the very same thing, that he ought to be a part of that. But what I find is that because you are more adept and you're more, I think, I would say women are better at this whole idea of communication and connection. I think that God has brought you into his life as a helpmate. And this is one of those helpmeet, what the word says helpmeet, but this is one of the things that looks like. This is where you're helping him to create a setting where it's peaceful living, peaceful for everyone, for you, for him, for the children, as a peaceful home. And this is one of those ways that you can set a tone for this, because you are the CEO. You are the CEO of the home, right? You managed all of that. And I guess he also wants you to do that. He wants you to become the chief executive officer of your home, of the home, and he supports that. So I want to encourage you to give him your full attention. And when you're listening to him and talking to him, be very present, right? And one of those ways he knows you're listening is when you're able to paraphrase what he says to show understanding, and avoid interrupting. Avoid interrupting like the plague. Stay away from that. I find so many times I hear, I had a couple I was working with one time, and this husband said, she always interrupts me. She interrupts me all the time. And so, of course, you do the same thing too. And they went back and forth. But he said, and she agreed that, yes, I interrupt him because he goes on and on and on. And I don't know when it's going to finish. And she also said, I interrupt him because he keeps on saying the same things over and over again. And I begin to say, well, yes, that may be true, but he feels disrespected. He feels dismissed. He feels like you don't listen to him. And even though you've been married for so long, you're thinking, I know what he's going to say anyway, so why not interrupt him? No. It's important that he feel heard, like you also want to feel heard as well. So that's called active listening, and doing so without any judgment, right? Validate each other's perspective and focus on finding solutions together. It's called creating an outcome that's pleasant and peaceful for everyone. And this is where the biblical idea of biblical principles, this is where you're living according to God's word, right? We're respectfully, these are our biblical, our kingdom principles. These are the things that make for a peaceful living when they are implemented, when they are embraced, when both persons are willing to say, you know what, I want to do what the Bible says. And these are the things that God has called us to do, to have the kind of relationship he intends for us to have. And so you're doing that to find solutions together, you know. And the Bible even said when two or three come together in his name and pray, God will hear us. He will do the things that we are asking for. So when you are in unison and you're unified, and this is one of those ways to get unified, then you can have all heaven on your side. I love what James 1 verse 19 says. It reminds us to be quick to listen. And I love this verse. I use it so often with my clients, those who are open to hearing about the biblical context or biblical principles. I said James 1:19 says, quick to listen, be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger, right? And another part of that, it continues by saying, the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. So we want to make certain that we are quick to listen, right? But slow to speak means slow to respond. Don't be reactive. Don't let your emotions get hijacks you. And then slow to anger, meaning that we need to manage our emotions and not get so upset and walk away and slam the door and begin to raise our voice and all those different things. That is not how we're going to have peaceful living. That is not how we're going to connect. And also creating the relationship, a reason to say, hey, this was good. We want to do this again. So what you're doing here is creating a setting where your relationship will say to you, we can make it, we can survive these conversations because why? We did it before. We did it before. So communicating effectively then with your ambitious, high achieving, aspiring husband takes effort. It takes effort as you are hearing that, right? But this is what you do when your husband is too busy. This is what you do, or you begin to do, I would say, when your husband is too busy. You want to connect with him. And but the rewards when you do that are so beyond words. So by understanding his language, finding common ground, and creating a safe space for open conversation, dialogue, honest conversation, you can build a stronger, a more connected relationship based on mutual respect and understanding. This is a path to peaceful living where you can have peace internal peace and external peace, where you can feel like you're feeling more confident. So you're going to experience peace, you're going to exude confidence, and then you're going to also be able to experience the peace of God that passes all understanding, because that peace will guard your heart and your mind through Christ Jesus. That is what the Bible says. So remember, communication is a journey, right? It's not a destination. It's a journey. It's not a destination. So keep practicing, keep working on this, and keep learning, and keep building that beautiful kingdom that you're working on. Keep building that marriage together. And as you set out to do this, and as you're willing to listen to implement some things I've shared today, I believe that your relationship is going to flourish. I believe you're going to have one where both of you will look forward to these conversations, and together you're going to change the world, because you're going to change your relationship, change your family dynamic, and then change the community around you. So what do you say about this? What's your thoughts? Make sure you comment and let me know what your thoughts about this is. And I really, truly want to hear from you. And again, if you have not yet subscribed to the channel, please do so. If there's something that you would like me to come, please also let me know. And make sure you watch this video right here, because you will find other things I mentioned that I cited in this episode, this video, that I have discussed also in this video right here. So with that said, my friend, thank you for taking the time to listen. God bless you, and I'll see you on the next video. Okay?